get it. What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, SchuZ Shoemaker. Hope you guys are all having a great Wednesday. Joining me today to kick off today's show is a man with a 15-0 record, including 13 KOs to his name. He goes by the nickname Sugar, and that's Cain Sandoval. Cain, I appreciate you taking time to come on today, man.
I appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Well, first things first, you have an upcoming fight. You're just about a couple weeks out now, and about maybe a half week now out from June 21st when you'll be fighting next. What's going through your mind right now as you prepare for this fight?
Just I'm really sharp, Just I've been in camp probably 10 to 8 weeks, sparring, strength conditioning. This is my first full camp with Freddie. My last camp was kind of like 5 weeks and a half.
Okay.
So this is my first full camp with them, and I feel great.
You know, we look at your career, and we're going to get into that in a little bit, but you obviously are already 15-0, 13 KOs, and now you're saying you feel great. You feel like this is going to be one of the best versions of yourself, obviously having Freddie Roach here in your corner for the entire time. How special of a Cain Sandoval can we be expecting now on June 21st?
You just expect. The only thing I'm going to give y'all is greatness, and I've been putting my everything in this camp, sparring. My last camp with Freddie, my first camp with Freddie was really mental because I was going through some personal stuff with my daughter and stuff. But this camp is like, all right, I'm fighting my first undefeated fighter. I have to prove a point. We're both undefeated, and I don't feel like I'm gonna lose.
When you talk about your opponent, Jesus Angola, walk us through him a little bit. Obviously, whatever you've seen of him, break him down. What's your thoughts on your opponent?
I've seen his fights. I studied him probably like once or twice, but
Okay.
I don't see that he brings anything to the table.
All right.
To compete with me. I seen he's fought veterans or like journeymen and stuff, but he's never been in the ring with somebody like me.
On June 21st, what's the prediction you have for how that fight's going to go down?
Just me coming out victorious. I'm not gonna say, "Oh, I'm gonna knock him out." I feel that I am not gonna knock him out, but I'm not gonna be like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna knock him out." I'm just gonna go out there and get that win.
When the night comes to a conclusion on June 21st, obviously people will be talking about you, whether that's win, lose, whatever happens there. But what's the statement you want to make? What's the kind of the opinion that you want people to have of you when that night comes to conclusion?
That when the night comes to conclusion, I just want people to say, "Okay, he's the real deal." I feel like people kind of overlook me. People kind of like don't take me serious in a way. But that's all going to change after June 21st.
I love that, man. That actually leads me to a question I want to ask about, because when we look at some of the top, let's call it top 25, under 25 guys, you're firmly in that consideration for myself. Obviously, talk about some of the next future stars of boxing. You're firmly in the mix there. And there was something, I forget exactly who you did the interview with, but it was earlier in this year after they gave the Prospect of the Year award in 2024 to Mosi Toma. And you talk about the fact that you believe you deserve that fight and you deserve that award there. Can you take us through that a little bit? Like, what leads you to have such confidence that you believe that, you know what, I belong in that top group. I'm one of, if not the best prospect of the future.
Just who I fought and the competition I take and the competition I've fought. I fought Javier Molina, former Olympian. I fought Romero Duno, former world title challenger. And I knocked out my last opponent. It took Oscar Duarte 8 rounds to finish him. I finished him in 4 rounds with one punch.
Right.
So, on that, when I see like some people's under 25 list and I'm not there, it's sometimes they don't even know about me. They're like, "Oh, like I don't know you existed," and I'm like, "Well, you're gonna find out,"
For those that have not yet seen you, or maybe be watching you for the first time on June 21st, if you could give a prediction, kind of a discussion of an outline of who Cain Sandoval is, how would you describe yourself?
Entertaining.
I like that.
Entertaining. I've never been in a boring fight. That's just my style. That's just who I am. I'm coming there to fight. I'm coming there to not lay down, not to run, not do all that. I'm gonna show my skills.
Well, Cain, I want people to get to know you a little bit better. And so I want to go all the way back. When you first grew up, started pursuing boxing, was boxing the first sport you fell in love with? Was it other sports, or how'd you get into boxing?
It was the first sport I fell in love with. It had to be. I never tried to pursue any other sport. I never did sports in school. No track and field, no football, nothing. Like I always loved boxing, and that's what I did.
At what point in your life did you start to believe that this was going to be your future, that you had a bright future and you could actually accomplish things that you've already accomplished and so much more in the future?
It was when I was 14, my first national tournament, and
Mhm.
people, I didn't even win this national tournament. I lost it, and it was my second. I won the first day by TKO, and I beat this dude from Texas. Then the second day I fought the 17-time national champion. I didn't even know he was 17-time national champion, but I
Mhm.
lost by split decision, and they're like, you know who's just fought? He's 17 national champion, and I'm like, oh shit, like I'm up there, like this, like I'm at that level.
Right. Another huge portion about you is that you come from Sacramento. That's obviously where your roots are from. And overall, California, the state, obviously, it's loaded with talent in terms of boxing. But Sacramento doesn't have a lot of guys, especially in this era of boxing, representing that city and being able to represent Sacramento, California. What does that mean to you?
It means a lot, because growing up, I wish I had somebody like me to look up to.
Yeah.
So it's like that's my fuel to keep going. I'm like, I'm becoming the person I wish I had.
Okay. When you talk about Sacramento boxing, do you believe that the future is bright? Obviously, you said it might take 10 or so years of people looking up to Cain Sandoval, but do you feel like there's a foundation or much more talent that could come out of Sacramento in the near future?
Definitely, definitely.
Okay.
There's some few amateurs doing their thing, and we'll just see. This upcoming generation. Like I'm the new generation coming in, but the next one, I feel like it's gonna be loaded with talent.
Going back into your story, when you grew up, I believe that if I'm not correct me if I'm mistaken here, but your dad, your aunt, and your grandfathers all were part of boxing growing up. What was that like growing up in that type of family?
It was good. Every time like Morales fought, Pacquiao fought, my dad bought the pay-per-views,
Right.
and I don't know if he did it on purpose or he's just like, "Yeah, come watch this with us." And I just sat there and just watched it, and I just fell in love with it. And I was like 4 or 5 years old.
Okay. As you go through that amateur career, you have over 100 fights in your career. You have a great, very accomplished amateur career, and then you make that pro jump. Was that pro jump easy for yourself? Do you feel like it came kind of effortlessly, or how did that pro jump go for yourself?
It was effortless in the sport aspect, but like the
Okay.
mental aspect was a lot, because when I was trying to turn pro when I was 18, but COVID happened, and at the
Right.
same time I was going to become a father, and I'm
Hmm.
like, man, like, am I even going to go to pro? And I'm like, my daughter's birth was like, all right, like I have to I have to make it. It's not even
Right.
like, oh, like I should try. Like, nah, I'm going to make it.
So you would say the overall jump for yourself was more difficult from the overall outside perspective instead of inside the ring per se for yourself?
Definitely, most
Okay.
definitely. Yeah, because in the gym, like that's my everything. Everything. I'm
Right.
in control in the gym. Like when I'm outside, I'm like, man, fuck.
Hmm. Now, overall, in terms of the transition, because obviously there's different styles between amateurs and pro fighting, I think that your style fits a little bit better in the pro style. But for you, was the transition inside the ring in terms of adjusting in that sense, was that part easy for yourself then?
Most definitely, yeah. It
Okay.
was easy because like some tournaments and some fights, like they would just rob me. They would just be like, oh, like you lost, and I'm like, how? I'm like, what the hell? But
Hmm.
now in pros, like I land that one punch and it's over.
You have the nickname Sugar. How did that come to be?
I don't know. I just grabbed it. I kind of
Okay.
just grabbed it, but it has a ring to it. People remember me by it,
Right.
and people be like, "Oh, sugar!" Like what the. I'll be like, but when they see me, they're like, they know shit ain't sweet when they
Hmm.
find me.
Do you know the story when that happened? Like, was there a certain day and all of a sudden it just came up and you're like, okay, I'm just going to rock with this? Or how did that come to be from that standpoint?
And when I find Manchester Garden, they're like,
Okay.
you need a nickname, or you should get a nickname. And I'm like, I'm put sugar, like. I just sugar cane. Like I feel like I'm one of the greats. I'm like Sugar Ray, Sugar Shane Mosley,
Sure.
like
All
all of
right.
them. Like I'm one of the greats. Entertaining.
The other component about you is you started branding yourself more and more with it, that you do have the grill. I know you always talk about that on Instagram, different things about that. I want to know the backstory behind that. Like, where did that come to be, and when did you first get the grill?
That's Sacramento. That's people ask me. They're like, "What is that? Like, what's that?" I'm like, "That's Sacramento. Like, if you go to Sacramento, like that's just a grill. Like, I had a gold one before I had my diamond one,
Right.
but I don't know. I just like it.
All right. Well, I want to get into one of your biggest wins. I feel like when you talk about last year, the Javier Molina win, that was obviously a big statement. I feel like that was almost the point where, for those that just were wondering, is he the real deal? Is he or not? You kind of made your statement that night. Like, that was probably one of your best, maybe statement wins of your career to this point. Walk us through that night. You're going up against a former Olympian. What was that game? What was that performance like? And just break it down, that fight for us.
Um, that fight was like I knew because the fight before that I fought Wesley Ferrer. He was 17 wins, 1 loss, and I
Right.
fought him in his backyard. Then my next fight was Javier Molina, and I'm like, I have to like put a statement on like an exclamation point,
Mm-hmm.
and I did. I was trying to knock him out. I ain't gonna lie, but like
Right.
after the 7th round, I'm like, I'm not gonna knock this fool out. So let me just whoop his ass. And he didn't win no rounds. So I feel like I made my statement with that fight. Getting ready for it, I was just
Right.
disciplined. It was just great camp, and yeah, I just put the beat on him. I
Do
had
you
to.
do you feel like that performance that night was almost a confidence booster for yourself too, realizing that, you know what, I can perform with the best. I'm ready to take the next jump now?
No, it wasn't even a confidence booster. It's just like I just proved everybody and myself.
Okay.
Like I knew I was capable of beating him. Like there was no doubt in my mind.
When you started off your career, you were on a KO streak. Then you obviously had your 2 fights without KO, still had great performances in those fights, and then you end up transitioning over to Freddie Roach's team. I want to walk us through that a little bit. Like, what led to that transition? Why did you feel like at that point in your career it was time to move over to Freddie Roach?
It was time. It was time for that next level.
Okay.
Um, I feel like I'm one of the best fighters in the world, and it's just a matter of time. It's already ran.
When you talk about what Freddie Roach has done for you and yourself, obviously we know Freddie Roach is one of the most iconic trainers in all boxing. How have your guys' relationship grown to this point in time?
Like, other than boxing, like I could talk to him about any other stuff. We'd be talking outside the gym, outside of training, but
Mm-hmm.
like it's just chemistry, and I like it.
What is Freddie Roach like outside the ring? Because we only see him obviously as a trainer. We see some of the footages and all those things. But what is he like outside of the ring?
He's funny, man. He's funny, calm, and it's like we talk about boxing,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just a funny guy.
All right. When you talk about the impact he's had on your life for the past year, what would you say has been the biggest thing that he's helped develop you in or grow you in as a fighter?
Patience,
All right.
really, like patience. Like when I first got here, I was trying to knock everybody's head off, and he was like, "Hey, you gotta say your punches like angle after this or do this," and I was
Mhm.
like, "All right."
One of the things about Freddie Roach is that, and we see it right now, he has Manny Pacquiao in there. I know you've posted a few different times on your Instagram about that component. When you just get to have some of these great all-time great fighters, great current fighters coming into the gym, sparring against them, fighting with them, how much has that benefited yourself?
It benefited me a lot because back home when I had my camp in Sacramento, nobody wanted to spar me.
Hmm.
Man, got to go out of town to spar. Man, it just wasn't it. I needed like that next level. I need to be with spar with world class fighters because I'm a world class fighter.
In terms of Manny Pacquiao, I'm not sure if you guys have obviously done too much together yet, but just overall, I know you've been able to be with him for a little bit. Have you been able to pick his brain at all? And if so, what's one of the biggest lessons that he's taught you?
Manny Pacquiao,
Correct, yeah.
that like don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
Like just watching him train is like he doesn't even have to talk to me. Like I just watch him train. I just be like, you're just watching greatness in front of you. It's like insane.
When you talk about Manny Pacquiao returning, obviously there's a lot of debate. Was it the right move? Is it not? What's your thoughts on that? And how do you think Manny Pacquiao is going to perform when he returns to the ring in July?
You never know with Manny. He's a
Right.
legend. Like he's proven people wrong before.
Mm-hmm.
And would you see? We'll see July 19th. I feel like he's gonna come out victorious,
All
but
right.
we'll just see.
I want to get into your most recent fight. That was a great performance for yourself. Once again, it's another great performance against Mark Benaldez. And that was a performance when people look at that and said, okay, another step up, another great fighter for yourself. You took care of business and did it in an incredible fashion. Did you expect to make that statement that night, or did you even shock yourself a little bit in that ring?
No, I knew that was gonna happen.
Okay.
I knew I was gonna get the highlight reel. Like I said, like it's already written. Like in
Right.
the locker room, the vibe was there, and I'm like, I'm gonna knock this guy out. Like it just depends on what,
Okay. And
and it happened.
And that would transform into this upcoming fight. We already talked about that, but I want to ask about your future because you're 22 years old. We already talked about the fact that you are one of the top prospects. And so I want to ask you now, we look at the next 12, 18 months for yourself. Where do you see yourself? What do you see yourself accomplishing, becoming? Like, where do you see yourself 12 to 18 months from now?
12, 18 months. When is that? 2026, 7
Yeah,
ish?
so it'd be about, yeah, let's say,
The
basically call
beginning
it
of
then. Yeah, pretty
2027.
much. Yeah, so heading into 2027.
World title contention.
All right.
Definitely. At 140, maybe even 147. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But world title contention. I'm gonna be for sure top five.
Mm-hmm. Being at 140 super lightweight right now, you just talk about the fact that obviously 147 could even be in the future. When you talk about that, like, do you feel like when you start really making that run and you start becoming a guy that could defend your belts and become that champion at a weight class, do you feel like that's going to be at 140, 147, or maybe even 154?
Um, Probably 40,
Okay.
40, and then 47. But we'll just see what the future holds. Like I
Right.
take day by day. I do think about my future a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but we're here now, and I'm just happy for what I accomplished now. But in
Okay.
18 months, I should be in world title contention, most definitely.
There's another aspect I want to get into about Cain. That's something that you're very vocal about. That's your faith. I want to get into that a little bit because I know you talk a lot about that. Can you explain it to us? Like, why has that been such a prioritization in your life to want to be vocal about your faith?
Because it saved me.
Hmm.
It saved me, and now I'm letting people know because I was in a dark place mentally,
Okay.
and um and I feel like if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here.
Right. At what point in your life, when was the transition where you really gave your life over and you said, you know what, I'm going to pursue this relationship with God. I'm going to get to know him better.
Um, it was after my daughter got really sick,
Okay.
and I just didn't know how to cope with it. I
Hmm.
started drinking and stuff, trying to cope with it, not training. Like my gym was my escape, but then I didn't know what to do when I went to the gym and I was still in that dark place. I'm like, where do I run to?
Right.
So I was all like, I can't crash out. I can't just just drink my dreams away, drink everything away. Like
Right.
everything I worked for since I was 5 years old, what my parents worked for, and it's like, so I was just started praying, gave my faith, like, all right, this is happening for a reason, and I have to bounce back. It's not like, oh, like it's okay if you crash out. It's okay if you become a bum on the streets. Like no, like I'm
Mm.
destined to do this. So I just put my faith in God, started praying, and He blessed me, man. I'm blessed. I'm blessed.
You know what's crazy about that is that so many people that go through tough times, and I know everyone at some point is going to deal with some extent of obviously difficult times, but your question is always going to be, do you pursue God? Do you get to know him in those tough times, or do you go the opposite direction? You just answer that. Obviously, we know which way you decided to go. For those listening, though, that are going to go through tough times, why is Jesus the right way? Why do you need to pursue God?
I'm not gonna say like, oh, pursue religion, but just
Right.
have faith in something.
Hmm.
You can't just be like, oh, there's no hope, there's no faith, just fucking give up. Like, no, you can't be thinking like that. Like,
Right.
there's much more than life than just giving your life up to drugs, alcohol, or just ending it all. Like, you matter in this world.
Absolutely, man. Well, Ken, I've got one final question I want to wrap up with you discussing. That's something that I always like wrapping up each and every single interview with, and that's discussing your legacy. At one point in your life, you're going to obviously step away from boxing. The day will come. When that happens, what is it that you want the legacy of Cain Sandoval to be?
That I inspired kids around the world.
Hmm.
Cause that was my biggest thing. I was like looking up to all these boxers, and I'm like, man, I wish like one of these boxers reach out to me and be like, oh, here's some
Hmm.
gloves, or like respond to my message,
Right.
or repost my video, and be
Hmm.
like, I could brag about it to my friends, like, oh, this boxer reposted my video, this and that. So sometimes when I have time, I go through my requests, my DMs, and
Right.
I responding, and the people be like, or there'd be like teenagers, like 12, 13.
Sure.
They'd be like, oh my God, you responded. Like, no way, bro. Like, I appreciate you. And I'm like, nah, it's all good. Like, cause I wish I had somebody like that. So if I inspired at least one kid, that's all.
I
That's all I
want to
need.
quickly follow up on that, man, because that's awesome to hear that because I feel like that is such a huge thing. So many guys, kids are going to be going through different tough times in life. And like you said, to have something that they can look up to. Has that been something that you just developed over the past couple of years? Has it always been your heart to want to be able to reach out and kind of be that inspiration for kids?
that's always been my thing.
Okay.
Like even in amateurs, when I used to go to the tournaments and come back, and I'd be like, "Oh, bro, like how do you do it, bro? Like I want my." They'd be like parents. They'd be like, "Oh, I want my son to be like you." And I'd be like 16 amateur, and
Okay.
I'd be like, just don't force him to box. Like if he wants to box, it'll work out. Because my dad never forced me to box. Like, oh, you have to box.
Okay.
I want to box. He told me sometimes when I was like young, you'd be like, man, like you should go to school. Because I was really smart in school. I was, honor classes and stuff. And he's like,
Okay.
look, you're good in school. Just like, but if you like boxing, like do boxing. I'm like, I love boxing. Like I'm gonna keep doing this.
Okay.
But um, inspiring kids, that's like my biggest thing for sure.
Overall, when you talk about legacy, you just said that's going to matter more than anything you accomplish outside the ring. Being able to be inspirational that people look up to. Does that come with pressure at all when you realize that so many kids are looking up to you and looking at you as someone that they can grow up to be like?
Definitely, it does come with pressure, but it's like it's nothing to me. I've
All right.
been under pressure my whole life, and pressure makes diamonds, and I'm here
Yep.
to shine.
I love that, man. Well, Kane, I appreciate you for taking time to come on, and man, it's a blessing having you on the show, and best of luck on June 21st.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me.
Of course, you're always welcome on, man. God bless.
Yeah, God bless you too.
I appreciate everyone for tuning into that interview. I have that clipped up and then edited out and posted it on my YouTube channel very shortly after the show wraps up. I'm going to go on a short break, and then we'll get into the remainder of the show after that. I'll see you guys shortly. going on, everybody? Welcome back to the SchuZ Show. I'm your host, Zach SchuZ Shoemaker. I appreciate each and every single one of you guys for tuning in tonight. Before I wrap up the show and we'll get into some boxing topics that happened over the past 24 hours, just want to send a quick reminder. For anybody tuning in that wants to give any ideas for me to talk about on today's show, make sure to leave them in the comment section. I'll make sure to answer them after each and every single segment so we can get into some conversations in that way. So make sure to leave your comments in the comment section and we can address some of those as the show progresses. Let's get into some boxing topics, though. First and foremost, we have a retirement in boxing that occurred over the past 24 hours. Kosei Tanaka has announced his retirement from boxing at the age of 29 due to repeated eye injuries. Tanaka set the world record for the fastest four-division champion in the history of boxing, which was only 21 fights. He won titles between 105 and 115, and his final fight of his career was the upset when he was upset against Pumalele Kafu in October. And that was when, I guess, ends up being his final fight of his career, for the time being at least. Obviously, we don't know that answer yet, what's going to happen in regards to if he will return in the future. But for the time being, Kosei Tanaka has announced his retirement from boxing at the age of 29. You know, what's unfortunate about this situation is that he was an incredible fighter. You become four-division world champion. That is a very difficult thing to do. And on top of that, he's the quickest to ever do it. He had a great career, but obviously injuries happen. And if he's not able to return, then he's not able to return. And I'll be honest with you. The fact that he did not rematch Pumalele Kafu when that was on the table kind of led to an assumption that, you know what, he's maybe a step away from boxing for a little bit. So this does not come by great shocking news, but we have lost Kosei Tanaka for boxing for the time being at least. Hopefully he enjoys retirement and get himself healthy as well. A couple things in regards to this weekend. Now, I'm going to be giving you guys a full preview of the weekend coming up on Friday's show. Thursday, tomorrow's show, I will also be previewing one fight that's going to be going down on Friday, which is the Josh Kelly fight. I'll be previewing that tomorrow. But Friday is going to be a stacked day because this weekend is stacked with boxing, fights, and matchups. So there's a lot to get into on Friday. However, I want to give you guys a little snip preview of what's going to look like there. Because two things in regards to the cards this weekend have come out over the past 24 hours. One of which, Adam Azim will return to the ring on Saturday's Callum Simpson, Ivan Zuko undercard against Elliot Chavez, who is 12-7-1 in his career. I want to say something about this really quickly. When we talk about the UK boxing scene, the British boxing scene, Boxer is a very controversial promotion company. I think Ben Shalom has talent. I think he has a future. But things, in terms of the managing styles, there have been a lot of issues. Unprofessionalism, irresponsible actions, and so on and so forth. And this is another one of those issues that just does not make sense to me. You have debatably the number one fighter and prospect in your entire stable, and you're just going to throw him on the end of an undercard for Callum Simpson this weekend. Last second, just throw him in there against a journeyman and Elliot Chavez. Makes no sense to me. You should be utilizing Adam Azim to be a headlining fighter. He's more than capable of doing it. You've already done that. For him to be fighting on the undercard is ridiculous, in my opinion. Especially an undercard where Callum Simpson is there. And I love Callum Simpson. I think he's a great fighter. But I think when you talk about Adam Azim, him being on the undercard for that card just does not make much sense to me. And there's a lot of details. I'm not sure. There's no facts about this yet. But what I will say is this. When you look at Boxer, and you look at their deal right now with Sky Sports, that's obviously going to be up in the air. I believe that deal comes to the conclusion very, very shortly. And this seems to be a fight that was forced to uphold both the TV standards or Adam Azim wanted to stay active and get another fight in. And if either one of those two were the reason that you're throwing Adam Azim on the undercard here, it's a very embarrassing situation. There is no reason that you should have ever had an issue getting Adam Azim a fight. He should be headlining events for yourself, and that should be done deal there. And if it has to do with Sky Sports, then you should be easily making enough events. Boxer's built a big enough stable now where they should be able to have more consistent fights to uphold the TV deal with Sky Sports. And if Sky Sports wants to move on from them, they're going to be in a very tough situation moving forward. They're going to have to figure out a new TV deal, and if that's going to be DAZN or whatever it is, but Sky Sports has been great to them. If they can't go get the deal done and continue to uphold their side of the end of the bargain, that's going to be a big problem for them. But the biggest issue I'm going to go back to is this. Adam Azim should not just be a guy that you throw on the end, throw onto an undercard for a boxing fight a few days out before the fight goes down. That's irresponsible on the promoter's behalf, especially in a sport like boxing where anything can happen at the last second. We have seen countless upsets happen in boxing as recent as just Saturday. And you're going to throw your number one prospect, or at least debatably number one prospect. Obviously, him, Ben Whitaker, other guys are kind of in the mix there. but you're going to throw debatably your number one prospect just onto an undercard this weekend, a few days before the facts happen, when Adam Azim is in a position, he's a top 15 ranked guy on multiple different organizing bodies. There is no reason that this is the type of guy that you throw on undercard days before a fight happens. Very irresponsible Ben Shalom and boxers for this decision here. On the other side, they've also now announced that Dillian Whyte has withdrawn from his fight this weekend in the UK. According to reports, Whyte has a bigger fight planned for August, and my guess is going to be Lawrence Okolie. They've gone back and forth for a long time now. That seems to be the fight that makes a lot of sense for both guys, and I actually do like that fight more. And I'll be honest, I'm not shocked because before that announcement came out, I actually did have the plans and the intentions to come on here and say, what the heck is going on with Dillian Whyte? Because you have a guy in Dillian Whyte who obviously is not, an icon or great, all that stuff, but he still is a recognizable brand name and image. And you did not have a fight picked out for him as of Wednesday, which is just 4 days before he's supposed to step in that ring. And this was something that you could have easily promoted on a large scale for them. So by the fact of the matter, they did not have a fight locked in for Dillian Whyte a few days before the fight happened, and it was to be determined. It kind of gave me an impression that this was never going to happen to begin with. It didn't make a lot of sense to throw a guy like Dillian Whyte in his return fight just back into the ring against a nobody with no plans, no thoughts, no consideration. So this is not shocking news to me, but still, once again, on the behalf of the boxer situation, it's just an embarrassing situation. When you don't, obviously boxers not have the stable of a Matchroom or Queensberry or someone along those lines. They have a solid promotion stable, but nothing to that high extent. And so when you are handling with just certain high-level fighters that are at least recognizable names, you should have a direct plan set for each every single one of them. And when you talk about going into a fight week, when one of, if not your number one prospect, is just going to be thrown on a card midweek, and on top of that, you're going to have a guy in Dillian Whyte when you can't even have a game plan set in place for him yet, is ridiculous. It's irresponsible, and a boxer needs to seriously adjust their schedule and their game plan right now because they have the potential to make big strides, especially in British boxing. But if you're going to keep screwing around doing mistakes like over and over again, we keep seeing again, and even going back to the whole Ben Whittaker, Liam Cameron fiasco, then this is going to come back and hurt you big time in the future. And as I've said, I do think Ben Shalom has the potential to become a large, big name promoter in the world. But he needs to fine tune himself a lot, reprioritize a lot of things, and make sure he gets business handled appropriately moving forward. Because situations like what's been occurring in 2025, and even going back to recent years, is unacceptable. You cannot be making this big of mistakes with big name fighters at this point in their careers. An Australian super bout is being planned between Michael Zarafa and Nikita Tszyu. Zarafa must first get past an interim bout tentatively scheduled in August. This would be a huge fight. For those of you that have not tuned into Zarafa's interview, you guys can go check that out on my YouTube channel. But he hinted at this. He hinted at either fighting one of the two Tszyu brothers. And this seems to be the route that they're going to be going now. Obviously, since that point when he came on the show, Tim Tszyu was the other guy I was talking about. He's going to be fighting Fundora. So that was already off the table. But this one, Nikita Tszyu fighting Zarafa, would be a massive fight to make in Australia. Has to be a domestic fight. Have it in Australia. It would do big numbers out there. But as this report says, he must first get through an interim bout that's tentatively scheduled for August. And I think he will get past that. But I'm just going to say this. That's the big type of fights Australian boxing needs to make. And I'm going to go off a little bit of a tangent here real quickly on Australian boxing. I feel like Australian boxing, while it is not a massive brand yet, the foundation that's currently being laid for Australian boxing is remarkable. And if they continue to build it up properly out there in Australia, boxing has a chance to become a household sport in that country from top to bottom. They have a lot of great prospects. They have big name fighters, and they have the foundation to be able to build a large scale platform for boxing specifically. It's good right now, but I feel like the sky's the limit for them overall. And this is the type of fight you need to keep making. You need to have more and more domestic fights. I think Australia is in the place now where they need to stop just sending guys consistently over to other countries and continue to have big fights on home soil. Because if you properly do that, I think that there is a big market in Australia that can be tapped into. And if done properly, Australian boxing will be massive out there. And we have one other news now. Ramon Cardenas and Marlon Tapales are reportedly in negotiations for a fight in October. Ramon Cardenas obviously is coming off of a massive performance against Inoue, where he dropped Inoue in that fight. Obviously still got KO'd in that fight, but he made a statement that night. And I feel like Cardenas versus Tapales is a massive fight to make in October. Those two guys should throw down for an incredible fight. Both guys are warriors stepping in that ring. That is the fight to make. I'm excited for that. October is a perfect date to have that fight go down in. the way I want to wrap today's show off with, but my apologies on that one. The way I want to wrap today's show up with is in regards to other news that's come out now. And this is going to be a little bit of a more lengthy segment. Ron Garcia had hand surgery a couple days ago. We've seen the pictures of it. It's evident he did have legitimate hand surgery, and it did not look very pretty overall. Now, what comes to fruition is that Oscar De La Hoya has told reporters that Ron Garcia will now have his shoulder examined after undergoing successful wrist surgery. Oscar has also said that he wants Ryan to look into taking a whole year off. Let me state the facts right at the gate. If Ryan Garcia is physically unable to step in the ring, there's no other option on the table other than taking a year off to fully recover. Obviously, that's the answer in the route you have to go down. You really don't have an option at that point in time. So I want to make that clear. If that's the route that Ron Garcia must do to get healthy, I have no problem with that. But if Oscar De La Hoya is suggesting that Ron Garcia takes a year off simply just to recover for the first 6 months or so, but then also from a mental standpoint, whatever it might be, that's a very risky decision to make. The reason I say that is if we go back to 420 of last year, when Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney fought, before we know about what happened, obviously outside of the ring, Ryan Garcia was at the height of his career. He just made one of the biggest upsets and statements that we could have ever seen or imagined happening last year, when he dropped Devin Haney multiple times and then got the win at that point in time. He was at the top of the world. We were all looking at Ryan Garcia a little bit differently. And then comes out the PED situation. He gets suspended for an entire year, so on and so forth. All right. I go back to December, though. He had an exhibition fight planned to go out there to Japan and fight. And I thought that would have been a great idea. Keep him active. Because at the end of the day, the biggest issue for a lot of boxers is staying active. And there was a exhibition fight lined up for Ryan Garcia, which he could have done. It was not an official fight, so his suspension would not have mattered in that situation. He could have done the exhibition fight. Oscar De La Hoya came out and said, you know what? Let's not let this fight happen. And then an injury happened and so on and so forth happened. I truly do believe that Oscar De La Hoya just did not want that fight to occur. And that's why the fight did not happen. And I'm thinking in hindsight now, that was detrimental to Ryan Garcia. If Ryan Garcia had that and got some boxing rounds under his belt heading into the Raleigh fight, things might have been a little bit different. Now, maybe not, but potentially it could have been. It would have set him up for a more successful opportunity when he fought at Times Square. Then we fast forward and he goes out there and fights Rolly Romero. Absolutely abysmal performance. And now we could say, you know what? He should have beat Rolly Romero. No excuses made. However, obviously, if he had a clear-cut wrist injury, and now he might have a shoulder injury as well. If all those things factor into this equation, then obviously we're in a situation where guess what? Ryan Garcia was injured and hampered in that fight. But here's the problem I have. If you are suggesting that Ryan Garcia should go out there and take an entire year off, that would mean that Ryan Garcia would have only fought one time in the duration of 2 years in his physical prime. That is not okay. And if he has no other option, then he has no other option. But after the performance against Rolly Romero and having all these injuries at his age in his physical prime and that much of a layoff, there could be serious issues about his career moving forward where I don't know if he's going to be able to bounce back successfully. Now, only time will tell in that situation, but what I would question Oscar De La Hoya on is this. As I said in the beginning, if Ryan Garcia has no other option other than to sit out, then he has no other option. But if there is a potential route in which Ryan Garcia can return in 6 months, and even though it's not a big fight, but he returns to fight somebody that he can definitely beat and get some rounds, or even do an exhibition fight, then Ryan Garcia needs to go out and do that. Because this much inactivity at his age is not going to be okay for him. He needs to stay in that ring, get active, and get healthy, both up here and obviously everything else below the head. Because Ryan Garcia does have talent. I'm not going to deny that. He is very talented. But if his mental and his body is not healthy, then that's not going to be a good Ryan Garcia. He needs it all to come together. And if that does take another year off from boxing to do that, then guess what? Do that. But I just have to be very skeptical about being willing to risk taking an entire calendar year off once again. Because Ryan Garcia is not in a position where he should be taking any more time off. His biggest issue, I feel like, in that fight against Rolly Romero was inactivity and maybe even injuries. But that inactivity kills a lot of fighters. And so Ryan Garcia, hopefully they make the right decision. I hope he gets back to 100%. But he needs to get healthy up here and the rest of his body as well if he wants to perform at a high level. And I just hope that that's not going to require him to miss an entire calendar year of boxing because that would be detrimental to his career. That's how I want to wrap today's show. I appreciate each and every single one of you guys for tuning in today. I will be going live tomorrow at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You guys are not going to want to miss tomorrow's show. I hope you guys have a great rest of you guys' Wednesday. May God bless you guys all. I appreciate you guys all for tuning in once again. I will see you guys tomorrow. And actually, one more thing before I hop off. I will not be having a basketball show this week. Unless something changes last second, basketball show will most likely return next week. The only reason for that is that with college guys, they're all getting on campus now for summer ball, and they're all moving in, so on and so forth. So there will not be a basketball show this week, most likely, unless something changes. But I do have already 2 lined up for next week, so make sure to tune in for those. But the boxing show will be good to go. We'll be back live tomorrow at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great rest of you guys Wednesday. May God bless you guys all, and SchuZ out. I'll see you guys tomorrow.